Well, as teams get ready for, because that's another thing too, is like the teams are going to start getting ready for the playoffs, and we got to start getting ready for the fantasy playoffs too. And one thing I get a lot is like, yo, should I start picking up defenses now? And like, how soon is too soon to start preparing for the fantasy playoffs? And I think it's still a little early for me. Normally I am like gung ho on starting to pick up defenses, but it feels a little early right now. And especially for those teams that are like fighting for a playoff spot. And we see how quickly like even the offensive landscape can change, right? Like a couple weeks ago, I may not have wanted to start a defense against Jacksonville. That's a defense I want to start against. I may not have wanted to start defense against Dallas. Now that's a matchup I'm hunting. So I think because of how quickly things could change, like if Joe Burrow goes down, we're talking about a whole different Cincinnati offense now. Or I'm not trying to wish nothing on nobody. I'm just saying if there's a quarterback that happens to go down in a really good offense, we might be hunting that matchup now. So I think it's a little early. The one thing I would be doing is making sure that like if you have defenses out there that are top 10 defenses, that they're not being just left out there. Because I think that's the thing that happens during bye weeks. Like Buffalo might get dropped. They've been a top defense all year. Like some defenses that have been top defenses that maybe we're not. Green Bay, I want to say they've been a top defense. That's the thing I would start to do here is like make sure there's not any top like things we're not thinking of available on waivers.
No, 100%. And I wouldn't be so much looking, like you said, for the fantasy playoffs. But so in one of my leagues, the league that I'm playing or my main league, right? The Eagles were dropped. And this is something that I would do. Like week 14 is going to be a big week for a lot of people. Because I really do think for a lot of teams there, it's going to come down to the week 14, and you have a lot of teams on bye. The Eagles get Carolina, right? So what I'm doing this week is I'm going to go and set my alarm and wake up and see if nobody claimed them, and I'm picking them up. And even though I need to win right now, I feel like I can give up one bench spot to have them ready to go for week 11 when I play the guy who's in first place. So I'm going to need every single point I can get, especially if I'm fighting to get into the playoffs. Like I need to win that week. So like that's something that I would do is just the defense is more of to win right now, like maybe next week or the week after where you're looking at it. And it's just such a good matchup. The Eagles get Carolina. Like I feel like that could be a game where they could get a defensive touchdown.
Yeah.
They could have 20 points and really help you win your league or week that week. So I wouldn't be looking for guys in the playoffs though, unless it's like, I don't know, Pittsburgh gets dropped and I don't even know who they got tough matchups anyway.
They play Philly and Baltimore. Yeah.
Like
you would have to know you're in the like I have a bye pretty much like 10 and
have
1,
a bye,
10-1, maybe 11-0. Like now I'm starting to kind of shift gears and think, okay, and that's if there's a team that's 8, like that has 8 wins, and I know for sure that I'm getting a bye because the one thing that I've done in the past before is I've counted my eggs before they've hatched, right? Like I've thought, okay, I got a 9-win team, I'm good, and then something happens injury wise, and I dropped a player that could have helped me get into the playoffs. Like you drop a player in essence thinking like I'm good to go weeks 12 through 14. I don't got to worry about it. And you get a little too early to the playoff picture. One sneaky strategy that I will have is like week 13, every team is out there. So every team is playing. And I think a lot of people are going to drop players going into buys that next week. That is the week I would be hunting.
No, and especially this week too. I think that a lot of people will be dropped this week where it's not so much where I'm going to like the defense, like I was saying, like I'm looking for defenses. Like I would seriously this week, what I would be doing today is assessing my roster and looking at players that, all right, I can drop this guy. I feel pretty good about dropping him because there are going to be people that are going to be dropped tonight that probably shouldn't be dropped. But once again, these teams need to win. There's injuries, there's buys, players will be dropped, and having
no trade deadline anymore. People know that.
So there's going to be players that are going to be dropped that you're going to have a real chance. And it's a bad week on waivers where I wouldn't waste my waiver priority this week. Save your fab because maybe somebody big gets dropped that team just can't afford to have anymore. Like they got to win this week or else they're really out of it. So I would be like really assessing my roster right now and waiting to see what happens after tomorrow's deadline and picking some
players that may be dropped right now that could probably help your team. Like a Darnell Mooney is probably going to be dropped after a bad week, and they're going onto the bye. He's not a brand name. I think Darnell Mooney may be dropped. Amari Cooper is another name who hasn't played well with the Bills. Some leagues, I'm not sure how competitive your league is. Some leagues he's going to be dropped. There, we might even see Dalton Kincaid, who's on a bye this week with all the tight ends and a lot of people not wanting to carry two tight ends. He hasn't played well. I don't even know if I would, to be honest, I don't know if he's really worth like going and spending waiver.
Yeah.
He might be dropped. We're talking about Tank Bigsby's another name who didn't play well last week. Travis Etienne, these guys may be dropped. They're on buys. And then I think that pretty much is it. Like quarterback wise, obviously, like you'll see Trevor Lawrence, Aaron Rodgers, things like that drop that they were being held. But I think overall, those are names that like I would be. I don't know that if they got dropped, I would be looking at the bottom of my bench to be like, who can I replace?
I would definitely be like, if Amari Cooper got dropped, I'd pick him up in a second.
I just think that's a name like I think people are probably tired of him. You know,
I know for sure, and I think that there's like it comes down to teams. Like you might not have the like you got to win. Like some of these, like I'm in a position, like I said, in my league, I got to win this week. If I lose, there's a real chance that I don't make the playoffs in one of my leagues. So like I got to win, and I don't have Amari Cooper, but you have so many teams on bye and injuries that, especially in leagues where if you don't have an IR spot, so you're kind of just holding on to a guy, and if you can't pull like an out player, like. Thankfully, we're able to put an IR spot or a player that's out, and like Tank Bigsby's technically still out. So I'm able to just move him to my IR spot. But like there's teams out there that might not be able to do that. So you're just eating up spots for these guys and kind of waiting, and you don't have the bench spots. So you got to make moves in order to get somebody who's actually active. So yeah, those could be dropped. Even a guy like if I was a contender and I win this week, like Ray Davis is a guy that I would definitely be picking up. Like he's a guy who has a lot of upside if anything happens to James Cook, where I'm just stashing it, and he probably will be dropped in a bunch of leagues because teams can't afford to hold him.
It's tough right now, man. I think another thing too is like that waiver priority. You kind of alluded to it, but like waiver priority and waiver bucks, like there's the early part of the year where I think a lot of people are like, man, it's super valuable. Go get, go pick up Isaiah Likely and spend your fab because this is when you're going to find league winners. And I think we did get some good players. We got Jordan Mason early. We got J.K. Dobbins early. But I would say this to me, because I think the ultimate goal is to win the fantasy championship. This is when now your priority and your waiver dollars become valuable because we will see players dropped. We will see opportunities for new players here. So be very selective with who you spend your waiver dollars on and who you waste your priority on, because you go do that for, say it's Amir Abdullah. There might be a better player out there next week. There's going to be somebody who does that. Or it might be time to waste it now if Amari Cooper's dropped. Now you might be thinking like, hey, it's time to waste that priority. So be very selective, and I would say aggressive too. Like if you see a player that should not be on waivers, I don't mind using a big ton of your waiver wires to go your waiver bucks to go get that player. So I think 100%. Being alert and kind of knowing the player that you're targeting, zero bid them, or just wait, like you said, till 3 o'clock in the morning East, 12 o'clock over here in the Pacific time. Just wait and go get your player after they've cleared. Other than that, I think it's time to be very aggressive with who you go to get name value wise, or if it's a starter for your team.
Yeah. And this week it depends, obviously. Different size leagues, 8-man leagues, other players can be available. Like a Jerry Judy's probably wildly available, somebody like that. But like if you're in a 12-team league, I really don't competitive, like there's nobody really out there that I would want to pick up on waivers this week. Like I had the number one priority that I would really spend my number one priority on. So I would hold it and see what happens.
I will say this for the teams that are in 12-team leagues, as we discussed, that 6 teams make the playoffs. It's most fantasy football leagues. Now is the time to assess. And I get this question a lot. Jahan, I'm 4-7. Am I cooked? The answer is no. If you have 7 losses, that's probably the cutoff for most teams this season. It feels like there's a lot of 8 win teams, I would say, in leagues, at least the leagues I'm in. I don't know about you, Tyler, but most leagues that I'm in right now, it feels like 7-7 with a good amount of points is probably the cutoff. So if you're 4-7, if you're 4-7, you are not cooked. Just make sure to outscore everybody here over these next couple of weeks and get 3 straight wins. That's the mentality heading into the fantasy playoffs. Do not give up if you have 4. And if you got 3 wins, 2 wins, 1 win, or hell, even 0 wins, set your damn lineup. I hate when people give away wins right now. Set your damn lineup, man. Everybody's fighting for a chance to get in the playoffs.
You're just playing spoiler. Just play spoiler and try to knock somebody out or ruin, the standings or something. Yeah, that shit's really annoying.
Don't be you're
not cooked. Like I tell this story all the time. Like there is a league where I was in last place in it was right around like week 11. Like I was in last place and I was fighting for my life and I needed the last week of the season, I needed to score X amount of points and I and win and have two other people lose. I had to outscore them, win, and they both had to lose to get in. And
Yeah.
I was able to do that. Just barely got in. And I went on to win the championship. Like that, all you need is just a ticket. That's all you need. And you have
Yep.
a chance. Even if you're like, my team isn't bad, you have no idea. Guys could get hot. Still, we're still at the time of the year where, hey, we just saw Brees Hall. Big week.
Is he back?
Is he back? Is he going to blow up? You're going to see guys like this blow up at the end of the year. That it's like, man, if I was able to just get in, you just need a chance. Like, just keep fighting. Who the hell knows? Maybe you don't make it, but yeah, especially if you're like 2-8 or 2-9, whatever. Set your lineup at the.
And I'll say
That's
with
what's
like kind of the
annoying.
I would say there was a lack of some superstars. So some teams like there's gonna be some stacked teams that don't make the playoffs this year. I'm
Oh
just
yeah,
being real. Like just looking at some of the players who have disappointed this season or maybe been injured for a long stretch of time, like there are gonna be some stacked teams that just don't get in. It took too long for them, especially if you were one of those guys that like traded and you were buying like player, you bought Mike Evans and he got hurt, or you bought, you were buying play Cooper Cup earlier in the season, or you bought players that were out for a long period of time. Like there's going to be some name value teams that do not get in the playoffs this year. So
yeah, and there's a team in my league. The guy has Derrick Henry, and he's not going to make the playoffs. Like because he like the rest of his team just. He has George Pickens. It just took too long for George Pickens, so he's, doesn't really, he has DJ Moore.
Yeah. Damn.
And Terry McLaurin.
Damn.
Like, it's been unfortunate. Like, and those kind of teams are really annoying too, because it's like my team in this league, but my team is finally starting to put it, like, you just have some weeks where like your guys, like one guy shows up and the rest of the team, or two guys show up and the rest of the team falls flat. It's just super fucking annoying. So yeah, it's like shit like that happens. It's fantasy football, it's frustrating. That's why we keep playing it.
That's why we keep playing, man. So shout out to all those who are still contending. Shout out to all those who are fighting through these apocalypse week number 1. We'll be back probably later this week. I think we can get another one later this week and kind of walk you guys through the upcoming weekend. But make sure you guys follow along. We'll see y'all on the next one. Peace out.